The storm outside is relentless tonight, the kind of rain that drowns out the world, leaving you alone with your thoughts and your regrets. My name is Ravi. I am an author by trade, a weaver of ghost stories and folklore. I usually write about the dead, but tonight the dead have come knocking at my door. It began at 2 a.m. My friend Marcus arrived in a state of absolute hysteria. He didn't just knock, he pounded on the door, pursued by the howling wind, and, if his eyes were to be believed, something much worse. He shoved a book into my hands, a thick manuscript bound in a rough red cover. "Read it?" he gasped, his chest heaving, as if he had run for miles. "I wrote it, but I didn't. Just take it. I can't have it in my house anymore." Before I could ask him why he was soaked to the bone or why he looked like a man on death row, he turned and vanished into the rain. A flash of lightning illuminated his retreating figure, and for a second I thought I saw a shadow trailing him, a shadow that didn't belong to a human. I was left standing in the doorway, holding the red book. I retreated to my study. It was 4:25 a.m. I had my own deadline approaching, a story about a protagonist trapped by spirits, cliché, I know. In the age of the internet, it's hard to come up with something original. Perhaps Marcus, a man who hated reading and preferred scrolling through social media, had stumbled upon a plot I could use. So I sat at my desk, the red book before me. Outside, the thunder cracked like a whip. The atmosphere was heavy, the silence inside the room thick enough to choke on. I opened the book. The texture of the cover was unsettling, rough, like dried skin. The handwriting inside was erratic, scrawled in pencil like a child's panicked scribbling. It was a diary. "Ravi," the first entry read, "forgive me. The cycle has to continue. I didn't want to give this to you, but I am trapped. And now, by reading this, so are you." I frowned. "A prank?" I continued reading. Marcus described an event from last month. He had been at the city library, taking shelter from a sudden downpour. He spotted a woman there. He described her with an obsession that made my skin crawl. She was wearing a white curta that clung to her damp skin. Her complexion was unnaturally pale, not fair, but the colour of a corpse drained of blood. He wrote that he approached her, entranced. She looked up, her lips painted a deep, jarring crimson that looked stark against her lifeless skin. "Can you help me?" she had asked, her voice soft. "I have written a book. I don't know how to publish it. If you could read it and give me a review." Marcus, who had never read a novel in his life, found himself saying yes. She handed him a book. This book. She gave him a phone number and said, "Call me when you finish." Then she walked out into the rain, her movements stiff, almost mechanical. As I turned the pages of Marcus's diary, his writing became more jagged. He described taking the book home to his apartment. He lived on the third floor. His landlord was away, leaving him entirely alone in the building. He described sitting in his kitchen, trying to cook, but feeling a heavy, oppressive presence. He read the book the woman gave him. It contained strange phrases, lines that didn't look like any language he knew, chants that seemed to whisper in his mind. Then came the entry that made me stop. "I tried to put the book down," Marcus wrote, "but when I looked at my hand, I wasn't holding the book. I was holding my phone. The number was already dialed. The call connected on its own." Marcus described a voice on the other line, a sound of wet, rasping breathing and the barking of feral dogs. "Don't go anywhere," the voice had hissed. "I'm coming." The diary entries from this point were terrified scrawls. Marcus described the sound of the front gate being ripped off its hinges downstairs, the sound of footsteps, heavy, rhythmic, like a horse with iron shoes climbing the stairs. He ran. He didn't go to his bedroom. He knew the creature would look there first. He ran to the kitchen. He found a large bamboo basket, a storage container used for grain, and squeezed himself inside. I could almost see it. My friend, a grown man, curled up in a fetal position inside a dark bamboo basket, peering out through the woven gaps. "Shay is in the hall," he wrote. "I can hear her. She walks like an animal. Her bones are clicking. Through the holes in the basket, Marcus saw a shadow enter the kitchen. It wasn't the beautiful woman from the library. It was a monstrosity. He described a creature with patches of mange, raw skin, and long, spindly limbs that dragged on the floor. It moved around the kitchen, sniffing the air, hunting for his scent. It stopped right in front of the basket. Marcus held his breath until his lungs burned. The creature stood there for an eternity, its rot filling his nose. Then, miraculously, the morning light began to break, and the presence faded. The diary ended there. I sat back, rubbing my eyes. It was a terrifying story, I had to admit. Marcus had a hidden talent for horror. I chuckled nervously, trying to shake off the unease. "Well done, Marcus," I whispered to the empty room. I stood up to go to the bathroom to wash the cold sweat from my face. I splashed water on my skin, looking at myself in the mirror. When I came back to the desk, I froze. The red book was open, but not to the page where I had left it. New words were appearing on the blank pages at the end. The ink looked wet. Ravi, the fresh script read. "Now you are in the cycle. You thought you were just a reader, but you are the villain of this story. You wrote the beginning, so you must face the ending." My blood ran cold. I felt a hand on my shoulder. I spun around, nothing. Just the shadows of my room. Then my phone buzzed. 1:22 a.m. The screen lit up the darkness. It was the number from the book. My hand trembled as I reached for it. I didn't want to answer, but my body moved on its own. I swiped accept, static. Then a voice I recognized. "Hello, Ravi. Do you remember me?" The memories I had buried deep in my mind erupted. The jealousy, the rage, the murder. 2 months ago. I was struggling. My books weren't selling. I was at a tea stall with Marcus, complaining about my failures, when a stranger interrupted us. "Are you Ravi the writer?" the man had asked. "I love your old work, but have you read the new author, Mina? She is incredible. Her stories have a horror that feels real. She is going to be the greatest writer of our generation." Those words were poison. I smiled at the fan, but inside I was burning. "Mina," I had muttered. "Who is she?" Marcus, innocent Marcus, had told me. "She's new. She writes about folklore. She's wealthy too. Lives in that old manor at the end of the lane." That night, consumed by envy and greed, I went to the manor. I told myself I was just going to scare her, maybe steal a manuscript to claim as my own. I broke in through the balcony. The house was silent. I found her in the library. She was young, beautiful, and working on a manuscript, a book with a red cover. She saw me. She smiled, thinking I was a guest. I didn't give her a chance to speak. I panicked. I grabbed a heavy letter opener from her desk and struck her. The blood sprayed over her white curtain, turning it crimson. It soaked into the pages of her book. I fled, leaving her dying breath to fill the silence of the library. I thought I'd escaped. But the book had found its way back to me. I remember, I whispered into the phone, tears streaming down my face. "Good," the voice on the phone rasped. "Then look up." I slowly raised my head. Above me, clinging to the ceiling fan like a grotesque lizard, was Mina. Her neck was twisted at a sickening angle. Her white dress was brown with dried blood. Her mouth hung open, dripping a thick, black fluid onto my floor. She didn't fall. She just smiled, a wide, tearing smile. "You wanted my story, Ravi," she shrieked. "Take it." I screamed and bolted for the door. I threw it open, expecting to see my hallway. But I wasn't in my apartment anymore. I was standing in a long, dark corridor. Lightning flashed through Gothic windows, illuminating heavy velvet curtains. I knew this place. This was Mina's manor. I was back at the scene of the crime. At the end of the hall, a light glowed from the library. I was drawn to it, unable to stop my legs from moving. For I walked into the room. And there, sitting at the desk, was a man. He was holding a knife. He was looking down at a dying woman. The man was me, a younger version of me from 2 months ago. And the woman, she wasn't dying anymore. Mina stood up from the floor. She pulled the knife from her own neck. She looked at the past version of me, and then she looked at the present me standing in the doorway. She handed the knife to the version of me sitting at the desk. "Finish it," she whispered. The past me turned. He didn't look at Mina. He looked straight at me. His eyes were void of humanity. He raised the knife. I tried to run, to hide in the shadows, but the door slammed shut. The last thing I saw was my own face, twisted in a mask of jealousy, bringing the blade down. And then darkness. And that, my friends, is where the story ends, or perhaps where it begins again. They say if you find a red book on your doorstep, don't open it. Don't read the first page, because some stories are not meant to be read, they are meant to be lived.